Welded it in place. Yeah. You know, if they would just have a little bit more fun, it'd be better, wouldn't it? Wonderful, wonderful. And as Raymond Fairchild used to say, I notice my fingers never leave my hands. Just give y'all a few little words tonight, and I won't keep you long. Jerry Fee, one of my friends, used to say, if you go to feed the cows and all the cows don't show up, ain't no need to dump the whole load. But I'm still going to give most of it. Just a little bit of introduction. I was born in Crossnore, the youngest of 4 boys to Carl and Ruth. And when I came home from the hospital, I came to the back of the service station there at the intersection across from what now is the gravel yard. It was a shell station then. We lived in the back of that. Worked hard. My dad and mom did. Dad died when I was 10. Mom worked several jobs, cleaned houses, and first one thing and another. My first job I had was a pool at the pool hall in Crossnore as a rack boy when I was 12. Not the best place to start your education, but I learned a lot. Started up at Grandfather Mountain when I was 14, working at the Top Shop, doing bear shows and picking up trash and putting bumper stickers on cars for Mr. Morton. Struggled. It was hard. Ended up going to the Avery High School, Lees McRae. Took a hiatus of 5 years. Ended up going back to Gardner Webb, getting my bachelor's degree at night. And then about 10 years later, was able to get through Trinity Theological Seminary with a Master of Science degree, or Master of Arts degree in Pastoral Ministries. The reason I tell you that little bit of the biography is I think one of the problems that we have in Avery County right now is everybody thinks they're a victim. And everybody thinks that they struggle and it's somebody else's fault. I grew up with a hard group of people who worked hard, lived hard, but never gave up. I really am troubled by what we see today with this whole idea of defeatism. Can't be me. It's somebody else's fault. There's nothing I can do. We have an angry group of people that don't understand the legacy we've been given. You'll notice in all the literature there in the back, respecting heritage and creating opportunities. And those two things are not mutually exclusive. We have to be able to respect who we are, but we have to look forward to what's ahead of us. And it's nobody's fault what's going on. We have to stand on our own. We have a culture that tends to blame people because I don't have what they've got, or somebody else's fault. Sometimes it's just because you've made bad decisions, and you have to overcome those. People will say to me, well, I don't know this. You must be keeping that from us. You must be hiding something. Sometimes you don't know something because you don't know it. And nobody's trying to keep anything from you. You've not done the work to research it. You've not been a part of the situation. So the anger and blame there is really troubling to me. We are a strong, resilient people. That's our heritage. That's our culture. My dad taught us boys that the worst insult that you could give somebody was to say that they were lazy. And you could not do anything, but you had to be willing to try, and I respect him a great deal for that. A lot of folks after my growing up years have told me stories about my dad, and they were all about the impact he had. And some of them had to do with people laying on the ground after he got through explaining things to them in a way they could understand. But that is where we come from. Hard work, resilient. We need to foster that. Our young people that we see in our schools, I am so troubled. They lack the ability to cope with problems because they've never been taught how to cope with problems. And we need to be raising up a group of people that are successful. We don't need to be the crabs in the pot. When someone tries to do something better, we want to pull them back. I always grew up saying, that people are above their raising. And for some of us, that's not a bad thing to move forward. So I just think as we look at the county and the things we encounter here, we have so much that we can overcome and be a part of. And the path that I took was an arduous one. I was able to cram 6 years of school into about 35 years. But it was hard work, but I got it done because you kept pushing. We need to foster more of that pride. Pride in who we are in Avery County. Pride of all that we've accomplished. It's nobody's fault. It's not the divisions that we sow. It is who we are as a culture. So that's one of the messages that I try to bring is as we move through this world, we help each other, we support each other. This storm that came was horrific. I tell people that we thought we were prepared, and you've always heard that everybody has a plan until you get punched in the nose. And then you just react. And we reacted in a marvelous and wondrous way. And the recovery that we're a part of right now, that we're still moving through, you've seen that. If you go down Sam Brown Straits, you see that big, huge debris pile is gone. That's amazing. Go to Cranberry, you see all these things. There's still work to be done. There's still bridges to be built, houses to be built. All those things are ongoing. The county is waiting for FEMA reimbursement to the tune of about $57 million for debris removal. But we're continuing to push forward. We've got a grant to rebuild our senior center, along with some other money that we're hoping to do. We were trying to be proactive. I've had to learn words like resilience and mitigation, which means a whole lot of different things to every different people. I told someone just the other day that resilience is what we have to be doing as the county, planning for things that may never happen, putting things in place that may be expensive, but that we hope we never have to use, but you have to have them there. Resilience is my good old Avery County definition is when you are hip deep in alligators, is not the time to negotiate the price of the boat to get you out. You have to be prepared. You have to think of that ahead of time. You have to be a way to do that. And we have tried to be resilient, to plan ahead, to move. We have better relationships with our fire departments and all the things that we saw. We did an after-action analysis that showed us some of the deficiencies. We've tried to correct that. We try to do better. And I think that's what we as a county moving forward, there's so much that we move in that regard to try to build this in and learn. Someone said, well, I hope that we will be able to get back to normal. I don't want to be back to normal. I want better than normal. I want more than normal because normal was not good to start with. Normal had deficiencies in the very beginning, so we need to increase that. I said in the interview once that for me, my hope is that 15, 20 years from now, folks will look back and say they took an event of epic proportions and damage and come out on the other side better and did more. And that's what we need to be building for. One of the things that I have been able to do is partner with a lot of other folks to build that resilience and learn what that means. I'm going to ask Tony McEwen to come up for just a moment. Tony is with American Flood Coalition and has worked with me across the Southeast and Washington, D.C. and Raleigh to help us in Avery County be an advocate in these places. And I'm going to let Tony share for just a moment of some of the work that we've done.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to be brief, and I definitely don't have as many one-liners as Commissioner Aldridge does. But I came all the way from Wilmington, North Carolina, to talk with y'all tonight because I've got a very deep respect for my friend, and I know y'all's friend, Commissioner Aldridge. And I was very excited, and I hope that y'all are aware of some of this, and if you're not, I'm excited to share some of it, how he's represented Avery County, not just on a regional stage or a statewide stage, Commissioner, but also a national stage. I had some pictures that I was going to show to you tonight, and we're not able to do that, but I'll show them to you on my phone if you're interested. But I'll walk you through some of what I was going to show you if you don't mind. Like I said, I came up from Wilmington, but my family goes back many, many generations in a little unincorporated community called Creston, outside of West Jefferson in Ashe County. So always a joy to be in Western North Carolina. And I can tell you, we do not have bluegrass music at political events in Wilmington. We just talk about boring stuff. We don't have good music like that. But so let me share with you a little bit. As you said, I'm with the American Flood Coalition. It's a national nonprofit. We try to be advocates for communities that deal with flooding related issues. And we created, after Hurricane Helene, an organization called the Western North Carolina Partnership. And it's meant to be an advocacy coalition of Western North Carolina local leaders like Commissioner Aldridge that it will stand up together on behalf of the region to advocate for a faster recovery, a full recovery, but also, as he was saying, a more resilient future for the region and for our state. And it's 25 communities. And it's a representative from a local government from each of those communities. And Commissioner Aldridge is one of those. And of those 25 folks, I can tell you that he is one of the two leaders of that group, along with the mayor of Lake Lure as an example. And it's just a very strong voice. And he has been an incredible advocate, knowing everything, Commissioner, that you have in front of you, that you're doing on behalf of your constituents, but to also take that additional time. I apologize to his wife a little bit earlier for bugging him all the time, but taking that opportunity to say, we don't just need to recover here, but we need to change how our state and how our nation deals with these issues for public safety, to better respect taxpayer resources going forward. And so he's been a strong advocate in Raleigh. We have been with him in Washington, D.C. And let me also say, one of the things I'd like to think that we offer is, as it's such a challenge in many of the communities in Western North Carolina to recover, we provide all the resources to make sure that folks like Commissioner Aldridge are able to be in Washington, are able to be in Raleigh, but that's not something that local taxpayers have to pay for. That's something that we pay for as a way to be helpful to these communities and to Commissioner Aldridge. So he's funny. He doesn't ever hold back. You know, some folks, they get in these rooms and they're like, oh, you know, we want to say the right thing. We don't want to upset anybody like that. And I'm always proud to have Commissioner Aldridge at my side, but I'm also a little bit nervous, if I'm being honest with you, because I'm one of those folks, I'm always worried I'm going to say the wrong thing. And he gets right to the point on behalf of y'all and on behalf of this region. And let me just give you a couple examples. So he's been in the White House with us, talking with some of the top officials in President Trump administration on behalf of Avery County in this region. He has been in front of leadership with FEMA, holding their feet to the fire on behalf of the communities here in Avery County. He has walked the halls of Congress several times now working on these issues, and he is a dang good representative of Avery County. And he is always talking about specific issues, specific needs here in Avery County. And I also will tell you another example. So we brought him to Eastern North Carolina to inform some of the folks along the coast, some of the challenges and the unique issues y'all face as it relates to flooding, to educate folks in Eastern North Carolina and to help kind of create a stronger voice. And there was the director for the Army Corps of Engineers, pretty important person. Again, one of those people I'm scared of. He's not scared of him, but I'm scared of him. And so I was moderating this panel, and it was all of these important folks, including the commander for this region for the Corps of Engineers. That stretches over many states, right? And so I see he's saying something about what they're doing in Western North Carolina, and I see Commissioner Aldridge start to stand up in the back of the room. And he's my buddy. And he's y'all's friend, and I need to call on him, right? But I'm also nervous to call on him. And he stood up and he said, I'm Commissioner Dennis Aldridge from Avery County, and with all due respect, sir, that ain't exactly right. And he, in a very respectful manner, just dressed him down and said, "This is what you're talking about does not match up with the experiences in my communities in Avery County. And let me tell you how it's going to happen and what we need to do going forward." And that's the type of thing he's doing. He's working on the front lines on behalf of y'all here in Avery County, but he's taking y'all's concerns to a national level. And let me tell one other quick story real quick. So, as mentioned, we work nationwide. But North Carolina is probably our core state as far as folks that are active within our organization. And but we're also try to be present when communities face really significant, like y'all faced after Hurricane Helene and like we faced along the coast. But in the midst of y'all's recovery, one of the most significant natural disasters we'll ever see in the history of the United States, certainly that we've ever seen, another very significant disaster happened in Kerrville, Texas. And so we quickly tried to build some relationships with some folks there in Kerr County and Kerrville, Texas. And we, with Commissioner Aldridge and some other leaders from Western North Carolina, thought that maybe it was a good idea to bring a select group of folks from Western North Carolina to Kerrville, Texas, and to meet with them and extend, a hand and to extend some prayer and learn from them and them learn from y'all after the flooding disaster that unfortunately, killed 117 people in a very small area. And I won't go into that detail. I know y'all know the story. And so we very quickly realized that Commissioner Aldridge was one of the right folks for the job. And we brought 4 people down. One of the others we brought down was the mayor of Lake Lure, who's actually from Kerrville, Texas. So it was a very emotional trip. And so we sat there, and they ended up taking us, they had sheriff's deputies, they had Texas National Guard, took us through the Guadalupe River. We didn't expect to have that. It was a very emotional thing. We sat in Kerrville city offices while Commissioner Aldridge and others met with the sheriff and his team and the mayor and the county council members there. And it was an emotional thing, and Commissioner Aldridge took the lead in the conversation. And I remember I took a picture of him leaning over the table and talking to the sheriff and to the other folks there, and they were listening really intently. And it was a tough day, and we went home after that, and I think we were all wondering, certainly I was, about how much value if we were able to help them. And he was talking about the experiences of Avery County and maybe some things that they learned and that maybe that could be helpful to them. And this was only about 3 weeks after that storm. So it was a little bit surprising that they were as welcoming as they were. And so we went home wondering, kind of how that landed, if hoping we didn't waste their time in a really, tough situation for them. The next day, the city of Kerrville, with a quote from the mayor, put on Facebook that they had visitors from Western North Carolina and had this lengthy post about how meaningful it was to them. And the picture they used was Commissioner Aldridge leaning across the table, reaching out his hand to the mayor of Kerrville, Texas, and to the sheriff of Kerr County. And so I want you to say that not just here in your region is he being a resource. I know y'all feel that way because you're here tonight, but in the state and in our nation and in communities that have struggled similar to what y'all have, he's been an amazing friend to them and a great leader. And he's a servant leader, and I consider him my friend, and I appreciate you, Commissioner.
When Tony first contacted me through the COG meeting that he spoke at, talked about this organization, and I didn't know anything about them. And I told him, I said, I trust my dog and 3 people, and you're not one of them. So I had to learn to trust him, and we've established a real relationship that's been very profitable for Avery County and our region as we move forward. So I'm just going to touch on a few things here from the county's perspective, that questions have been asked and issues, and kind of move from that into, I know everybody's thinking, man, when's he going to get through and let Darren and Brooke come back up here? Not for a while. Someone said, Dennis, can you say a few words? And Cindy said, probably not. But it is good to be able to share with you what's going on in the real world here. One of the things that we have talked about a lot is housing, affordable housing. Affordable housing means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And we are in the process of trying to negotiate that moving forward. The storm showed us what a situation we have. We knew that ahead of time. One of the issues that is difficult is hard to take public money and assist in private enterprise. There's a real distinction between those two pools of money, and you have to learn how to negotiate that. And we cannot incentivize for an individual what is your tax money. It has to be worked through a different process. And I'm so proud for C. Dudley Green, our representative here tonight, who is working with us to try to negotiate that and has been a strong advocate for Avery County at the General Assembly. Appreciate him every day as we try to build this resiliency and look at what we can do to provide housing, not just at the affordable housing, the lower end of the average median income, but market value housing and how we can incentivize builders to come in and work on those homes. And that, I know that everybody in the county looks at our developments and it looks at the resorts and looks at all those multi-million-dollar houses and said, that's driving up the price of everything. It is a market value system, everything we do. Revaluation for taxes is based on market value, so there are all kinds of factors. But from the tax standpoint and moving forward with housing, were it not for those high dollar houses, our tax base would be much lower and our tax rate would be much higher. It's simple math. It has to work together. We have about the 9th lowest tax rate in the state out of 100 counties. And that's because of the valuation. Next year, we have to do a revaluation. We didn't do it. We're supposed to do it this year for 4 years, and we decided with everything that's gone on, we couldn't. So we pushed it back a year. 4 years, revaluation. Things change. Prices change. But what we do is we take that new valuation and change the tax rate to try to bring it to a revenue neutral situation where your actual dollars remain the same, but the value, just like going up. People say, well, my house is worth 40% more according to this valuation. Well, probably so, because that is the market in which you live. And it's not something we do here. We do it in Avery County. We don't use a third party, but it's based on the metrics of the market and valuation and community and a lot of different factors. So we really strive to keep that low. There's not been a tax rate increase in Avery County in 4 years. And we really strive to do that and keep our budget reasonable. There's a move in Raleigh right now to have some reform on property tax. You'll hear a lot of things coming through the news. A lot of people have a lot of ideas. A lot of them are not good in my estimation. And there needs to be some reform, but it needs to be done in a way that is scalable and allows us to make some other changes, because the loss of those property tax dollars results in loss of services from the county. About 50% of the county budget comes from property taxes. The rest comes from from sales tax, fees, and that type of thing, some intergovernmental loans and so forth. So it's really critical. And folks, I've heard people, well, we just need to do away with property tax and just increase the sales tax. Just so you know, if to make up that revenue, sales tax would have to be about 20%. So if you've ever been in Europe or somewhere where there's a 20% value-added tax on everything, there you are. That's not the way I think we should do it, because sales tax is the most regressive tax that we have, because it disproportionately affects those of lower income, because the rate that they pay is the same as someone who is of high income. When they go to the store, they pay the same amount. So it disproportionately affects lower income. So big discussion, a lot of things going on. We're at the forefront. We're advocate. I'm going to Raleigh next Wednesday, spending the whole day talking with the folks on that committee to try to advocate for scalable, sustainable change. And I can understand reform, but we need to do it in a way that goes forth. A couple of other things I wanted to speak on: the drug crisis in Avery County. Part of the drug crisis roundtable at MEET, the opioid settlement monies that we have received from the government, that each year we give out to some nonprofit organizations to undergird the work that they're doing. It is a huge issue in Avery County, just like it is everywhere else. And it's not something we can run away from and hide. A lot of folks look at Avery County as this beautiful kind of Mayberry kind of place, and it is. But there's a lot of problems. You know that about 10% of the population of Avery County has been either in jail or prison. Hello. It is something that we all have to deal with. We all have to encounter, and we all have to find solutions to it. And part of that is through law enforcement. Part of that is through building a better social net. Part of that is building resilience in our schools so that our young people feel they can deal with things rather than turn to this and have alternatives, like I was talking at the beginning. Build something positive, that there's hope in their life, rather than the fact that my grandpa was, on the meth, and so's my dad, and I guess we live in here, and that's all we're ever going to be. We have to break that. The mental health part of that, the environmental part of that, and that is what we're really pushing to try to do. A couple of other hot button issues. Animals. Been a lot of discussion about Humane Society and animal shelters and all like that. Since I've been on the commission for 8 years, the most people that's ever showed up for a meeting was about animal shelters. And we're in the process. We had money from General Assembly and the state appropriation to do a dual county animal shelter with Mitchell County. That has COVID hit right at the start of that. There's been some issues with the folks that were doing the design. We had a $2 million grant, and they brought back a $6 million building. That math does not work. So we are reevaluating that right now and moving forward. But I must say I have changed my stance. When I come in to be the commissioner, I was told, don't ever talk about zoning or animals. Zoning I agree with, by the way. But we do have to do something different. We are working with the Humane Society to try to expand their services and do provide some county funded officers and agencies and even structures to move forward in that. So it is something that I've been continuing to advocate for, and that I think this year we will move forward with another plan to better engage the animal control that we have. There will always be a need for animal rescue and welfare. There's a difference between animal services and animal rescue and welfare. Every kitten, every puppy, everything that's out there in the world, everybody wants to save them. But from a practical standpoint, the only way to deal with population control is that you have to reduce the population. And to do that in a humane way, I think is what we're working toward, and I hope that we'll be able to accomplish that. And I'm very hopeful. And moving forward, I think we're working with some good folks, and we will try to meet those needs. Last night, we had a meeting with the school board over the consolidation of our 2 middle schools. A lot of discussion, a lot of angry people. The student population has fallen about 375 in the last 7 years. The school, if you look at a graph, the school student population is going this way. The county funding is going that way. Those 2 graphs cannot be continually getting further and further apart and be sustainable. So there's got to be some issues that's gone to play. There's some plans in place. We're not sure what that's going to look like. That is a school board issue. They make that decision. We try to support them. I do know that of those property tax dollars that we were talking about a moment ago, last year about 34% of every property tax dollar went to schools. About $6.8 million. Wow. And we fund per student at a rate about twice of any of the adjoining counties. So we have seen and support the the school system and what they're doing. We've had some, what's the good word? Interesting conversation.